I would say I'm an advocate for breaks at any given point in time. So, my experience was the break you're talking about, which was, the 20 months off, travel around the world, take a big break, and rethink what I want my future career path to be, right? When we talk about those successful next chapters, I wanted my next chapter to look completely different than the last one. And so I used that time to really reconnect with myself and live very fully and to really make dreams come true and cross some things off the bucket list before I came back to figure out what that successful next chapter was going to look like. But, right, that break was 20 months. That's not accessible to everyone, nor does everyone aspire to take such a long period of time off. And so with the clients I have, worked with, what I have found is that even shorter breaks can be massively beneficial. So, there is a client I actually just shared recently on YouTube, his interview. It was incredible. I was so fortunate to have his time, but he took a break as a senior, corporate executive at a big company, big Fortune 100 company. He took a break. He took a 2-month break. Originally, he was planning on using their sabbatical policy to take this break and kind of refresh, recharge, disconnect. But ultimately, he ended up agreeing to take on a role as a CEO at a different company, so it became a career break. So he wasn't going back. He was no longer going back to his company after the short leave. He was going to transition. And what he showed me and what I saw and experienced through him and through other clients is even that dose of 2 months was so powerful to how he was able to come into that new role that had expanded responsibility, like massively expanded responsibility, and just bring the best version of himself, but also to feel like he had fulfilled so much of his desire to connect with his teenage sons, I think one of whom was going away to college, and his wife, who, these people also sacrifice time, right? When you are running, and you're investing in your career, you have a finite amount of time. And so he was able to turn around and give it back to the people that mattered most. He was able to find space to give it back to himself, and also to basically restore and reboot so that when he came back into this role, when this new role appeared and he jumped into it, he says that he came back at some other level. It was like 100% him. And I was just like, wow, that's really incredible to see what even a small break can do. And so if you're able, right, to either negotiate that time, or if you're jumping from, one company to another, trying to negotiate that start date far out, realizing that the company is going to win too, because who you can show up as when you stop to breathe, take a breath, process the old job or the old role that you're leaving, and mentally prepare for that new role. It's just incredible.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome back to the podcast, Living the Next Chapter. Let's just start with this. If you consider yourself to be a dummy, we have the perfect episode for you today. And we don't mean that to be like mean, but if you're just like, oh, I need something, a book that helps me. And if you love those Dummies Series books, I have one, Guitar for Dummies. There's so many, like Plumbing for Dummies. I don't know, Podcasting for Dummies. I don't know if that even exists, but we have an author today who is now going to be part of the alumni of a very famous black and yellow book that most of us have somewhere in our library. This is going to be your newest addition to your library. Katrina is here with us today on the podcast. Katrina, welcome to the podcast, and one of the biggest dummies you're ever going to meet right here. I'm so happy to have you on the podcast. Great to have you.
Thanks, Dave. That's quite an intro. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Okay. All right. So people are like, what is going on? Yes. So Katrina, you are going to be writing, or you're in the process of working on a book that's coming. Can you just give us a rough idea of what this book is entitled, working title?
Yeah, I sure can. So the working title, I'm currently writing this book, and the working title is Taking a Career Break for Dummies.
This is an official For Dummies series book.
It
right?
is. I'm working with Wiley, who owns the Dummies series, the For Dummies series.
So you planned all this. You just one day said, I'm going to write a book for the Dummies series. I'm just going to do this because, hey, I'm Katrina and I know what I'm talking about. That's how it happened, right?
I wish I was so bold and had that confidence. I aspire to that one day. Actually, It was kind of the opposite. I was minding my own business, working in my business as a coach, as a career break and sabbatical coach. And I opened up an email from someone, and it asked me if I would be interested in writing Taking a Career Break for Dummies. And I promptly felt slightly irritated by what I thought was spam and considered just deleting it because that couldn't be real, right? I can't tell you how many times as a coach or an online entrepreneur, I get so many messages from people that want to like have you pay them $10,000 so they can like get leads for you or get you onto a podcast, but it's just like it's such a scam. And so I just figured this was one of those emails and I almost deleted it, but I was really curious. So I Googled the woman who sent me the email, and I also Googled Wiley because I actually did not know Wiley Publishing. I did not know who they were. And so, because I've never been an author before. And so upon Googling, I was like, oh my God, I think this is real. I think this is actually real. And it was real.
Okay. I heard you on a podcast. I mean, we're definitely going to go deeper on this. If you're listening, you're like, wait, don't change the subject. Ask her more questions. I'll be right there. I heard you on a podcast and you said, and I quote, successful next chapters was part of your response. And now I'm probably taking that out of context, but you actually said the word successful next chapters. This is living the next chapter. And I just kind of want to make that little segue going, hey, you actually kind of said the name of my podcast. Just, so thank you for that. But you are all about the next chapter, right? Living that next chapter. And what you do is fascinating to me. So I want to take us back to what made this person reach out to you out of curiosity to ask you to write this book. I would like you to take us as an audience back to what they saw in what you're doing that even sparked the email to start with.
Yeah.
Because that's where I'd like to begin.
Yeah.
Can you take us there?
I absolutely can. So, venture back with me to several years ago. This was about 5 years ago when I was starting my business. I had been interviewed for an article about paying off student loan debt and making this leap into entrepreneurship. I paid off the last $42,000 of my MBA loans in less than 2 years, and saved $40,000 on top of that in 18 months to quit my job and travel around the world. So Forbes ended up featuring this article. So imagine now in 2017, there's this article, just a feature of me, just me in this Forbes article that had a lot of views. And so, in the Dummies team, they have people, I think they're acquisition editors and such that go out and they look for ideas, right? So they produce a lot of books every year and they're always trying to stay, on trend and current and think about what does the audience out there want to know about? What are the things coming up that they would love to learn about? By the way, there totally is a Podcasting for Dummies book, but, they're just trying to, yeah, I know there is. But they're always trying to find what's out there. And so, this particular person, I think through Reddit and then also just articles really felt like there was a lot of momentum around this idea of being able to quit your job and take a break. And so she started doing some research once she knew this was a topic, and she stumbled upon an article I wrote. I think it was called something like 3 Life-Changing Lessons My Career Break Taught Me, that I had posted on my blog, on my website originally back in the day, like 4 or 5 years ago, but had recently posted in the last year on Medium. And it was the only article I had on Medium. But she said that she found that article. She liked the way that I told the story. Then she Googled me a little bit more, found my Forbes article, which I think, builds credibility. And then she went to my website and really just started doing some research on who I was and how I showed up and how I communicated. And she said that she felt like getting to know me through all of that, I was the person that she felt like was going to write this book. And it's really funny because I asked her at first, I was like, is she just trying to get ideas for me so she can have somebody else write this book? Because, it was like, write an outline of what you think this book would contain because it was such a foreign topic for most people. She's like, could this be a book? Is there enough meat here to actually make a For Dummies book? Or is this just an interesting topic? And, of course, in my immediate response, I was like, yeah, absolutely, this could be a book. And so I wrote a sort of rough draft table of contents for her of what I would put in the book if I wrote it. But I wasn't sure if she was just using me for information or, pitching me against other people. And so I asked her, how many other people are you considering? And she was like, just you. She was like, if this could be a book, I want you to write it. And I was like, wow, that was really an incredible moment.
to know that your finger was hovering over that delete key on the keyboard going, this is not right. Who would email me about this? Like, was there a little bit of, in that second moment or whatever that was there a little bit of imposter syndrome? Like, who am I to write a book about this? Like, did that happen?
Oh, I totally had imposter syndrome, but it was not at that moment. So when she originally reached out and I realized it was legit, I was like, yeah, I could write this book. This will be fantastic, right? And then I do the table of contents and I wrote it in like 2 hours and it's super detailed and it has, like 20 chapters, 4 parts. Like I'm just feeling it. It's flowing out of me. And I'm like, oh my God, I could crush it at writing this book. But it was the moment when she was like, okay, great. Let's draft a contract, where I was like, oh my God, I'm committing to writing this book. Who am I to write this book? Why didn't they ask so-and-so? What if this other person reads my book and then writes them an email and is like, you picked the wrong person. She's crazy. She doesn't know what she's talking about. I know way more than her. And I had a lot of imposter syndrome, but it happened more when it became real as opposed to the idea.
I don't understand how this happens. Like, I understand why it happens for you. I just can't imagine that email. I'd be staring at it for days going, I don't get it. Why me? I have no idea. So I love your response and I love the way you approach it and the fact that you said it just flowed out of you. You didn't have one chapter in your mind. You laid it all out. So is that kind of your superpower? Do you think as a new author that you can think in those terms and draft it out that way?
I definitely think that my organizational brain is an asset, right? In that I have all this information from the last almost 6 years I've been doing this, plus my own 2 years of personal experience. And so my brain structures things in such a way that I think writing that table of contents made sense. I also, I was a math major. I spent 8 years as an actuary. So I definitely have lived into my analytical brain side. But also, I've been living and breathing this stuff for 5+ years. It is my mission, right? What I'm here to help people do and reclaiming their time and just really making their life be more of what they want. And so I think to that end, it was all inside, right? And then my organizational brain could think about how it would flow out. But this is stuff I've been talking about for so many years. And I have taken people through programs and like courses I've done and then one-on-one coaching. And so I've broken down the steps many times. So I actually feel like, unbeknownst to me in these last 5 years, all the work I've been doing has sort of been building to this moment in that I had all the pieces. They just hadn't clicked into the puzzle where I could see the bigger picture.
Okay. So no, again, I've heard you on other podcasts. You're a great guest, by the way, on other shows. So thank you for being on mine. Explain to me a little bit about the sabbatical idea and taking a break, because the one thing that I picked up on by listening to you elsewhere was it's not just about like escaping a job you don't like, but I heard it more in the context of the moment you're about to be promoted to a higher level within your company to take a break then. I had never, ever thought of that. I've been promoted in jobs before, and you move up the ladder and one day you're this and tomorrow you're this and off you go and you don't know what you're doing and you have all new stresses and all new things you have to learn and that learning curve takes off and you don't get a break. You just, in the excitement of being promoted, you just jump into your new office and set up the plants and hang up the pictures and your phone starts ringing and now I'm the boss, But your idea is about to take a break in between there and give yourself some breathing room. This is completely foreign to me, and that's probably why I'm a dummy in this sense. Can you please unpack this for me? Because it's very unique.
I definitely can. I would say I'm an advocate for breaks at any given point in time. So,
okay.
My experience was the break you're talking about, which was, the 20 months off, travel around the world, take a big break, and rethink what I want my future career path to be, right? When we talk about those successful next chapters, I wanted my next chapter to look completely different than the last one. And so I used that time to really reconnect with myself and live very fully and to really make dreams come true and cross some things off the bucket list before I came back to figure out what that successful next chapter was going to look like. But, right, that break was 20 months. That's not accessible to everyone, nor does everyone aspire to take such a long period of time off. And so with the clients I have, worked with, what I have found is that even shorter breaks can be massively beneficial. So, there is a client I actually just shared recently on YouTube, his interview. It was incredible. I was so fortunate to have his time, but he took a break as a senior, corporate executive at a big company, big Fortune 100 company. He took a break. He took a 2-month break. Originally, he was planning on using their sabbatical policy to take this break and kind of refresh, recharge, disconnect. But ultimately, he ended up agreeing to take on a role as a CEO at a different company. So it became a career break. So he wasn't going back. He was no longer going back to his company after the short leave. He was going to transition. And what he showed me and what I saw and experienced through him and through other clients is even that dose of 2 months was so powerful to how he was able to come into that new role that had expanded responsibility, like massively expanded responsibility, and just bring the best version of himself, but also to feel like he had fulfilled so much of his desire to connect with his teenage sons, I think one of whom was going away to college, and his wife who, these people also sacrifice time, right? When you are running and you're investing in your career, you have a finite amount of time. And so he was able to turn around and give it back to the people that mattered most. He was able to find space to give it back to himself and also to basically restore and reboot so that when he came back into this role, when this new role appeared and he jumped into it, he says that he came back at some other level. It was like 100% him. And I was just like, wow, that's really incredible to see what even a small break can do. And so if you're able, right, to either negotiate that time, or if you're jumping from, one company to another, trying to negotiate that start date far out, realizing that the company is going to win too, because who you can show up as when you stop to breathe, take a breath, process the old job or the old role that you're leaving, and mentally prepare for that new role. It's just incredible.
Okay, so I have a question about the length of time for a sabbatical, because I'm thinking you could have, at the very minimum, a work nap where you just take like a little snooze, all the way up to years you were talking about potentially. Is there a magical number at all, or is it related to the person and the situation?
I think it's related to the person and also to the need, right? The context of why the break. So if it's a transitional break, like I have been working really hard for a long time, I'm really excited about the work I'm doing, and I'm either stepping up into a new role or moving to a new company, I think those breaks can be shorter. They're basically a recharge break, right? To pour back into your personal life, to catch up on your sleep, to feel restored and ready to go. Now, if you're talking about, holy crap, my life is not feeling like it's in alignment, I'm headed down a path I don't want to be on, or I'm incredibly burned out and I just am questioning everything, then you're looking at a 6-month break to a 12-month break. A lot of the people, myself included, that take breaks longer than 12 months, it's really just loving that experience. A lot of times travel is involved. So there's this element of, being able to like go places and have this time freedom and this location freedom. But I'm going to say that once you are realizing you need to fix some things about how you're making those life decisions, or you want a different path, you really need a longer period of time. So at least that 6-month period to give yourself time to heal the burnout, decompress, and then really explore what could come next, but in a non-pressured, anxious, sort of hurried, desperate kind of way.
So you seem like someone who's well thought out, well planned, disciplined to pay off your student loans and everything, all that. At what point, was there any point in your sabbatical where you got a little bit antsy? Like, I should be working. I should be doing something right now. I'm traveling the world, but oh my gosh, I should be actually at my desk. Like, did you ever have any of that, or were you completely on sabbatical?
I was super anxious about what was going to come after my break. So I am maybe a slight anomaly in that I really love being unemployed. I can fill my time like no one's business. I can find joy in just walking down the street to get a coffee. I could make that a 2-hour event and I could love every minute of it. I didn't have a lot of the anxiousness that some of my clients have about needing to be productive at all times. But right, for me, it was that pressure and that sort of big blank slate/question mark of what's going to happen when this break is over. And financially, what is this going to look like for my life? At the time I took a break, I still had that $42,000 of student loan debt that was just hanging out there that I had to come back and pay off. And so I had a lot of anxiety around that. And that is actually what helped me understand the power of what I call a reentry period. So dedicating time at the end of your break, we're talking like a couple months, to slowly re-enter and figure out what you want to do next, so that when you're, on the beach or you are playing with elephants in Chiang Mai at the sanctuary, you're able to have that moment of panic and desperate thought and say, oh, wait. I set aside 4 months or 3 months or 2 months to freak out and worry about this. I'm going to worry about this in September when I hit my reentry period. I don't have to have the answers right now. So it was really important for me to have that dedicated time to worry and try to find the answer and take the actions towards that next step. But I definitely had moments of panic. I mean, anything you do that's countercultural and that most people around you either don't know or would never consider, you definitely have moments where you question yourself. And I think that's part of why the work I do is so important. And part of why I really want to write this book is because I want people to feel like they can give themselves permission to do this if they need and want to. And I want them to feel like they're not so alone in that.
So creating a sabbatical plan, do you need to have an end date? Do you need to have a date when you're like, my sabbatical will end on this date? Or are we leaving this wide open where we just come back to work when we feel like it?
These are such great questions. So, the rule of thumb is that you want to think about roughly how long you would like this break to be from a budget standpoint, right? At least a minimum. So understanding your numbers to say, I can be on a break for at least 7 months. So it's really good to kind of have that understanding as you're mapping out when you're going to go, how much money you're going to spend, what you're going to do, to kind of understand this minimum amount of time. But a lot of my clients, I would say probably half, end up going into it with a fuzzy end date, like a sort of, I think it's going to be 7 months, and then it will be 8 or it will be 9. And sometimes I have had clients who get on this break and by month 3, they're like, I'm going to find a way to semi-retire and I'm never going back to full-time work and this break will last forever. And so, the world is your oyster at that point. Like if you have means to make alternate streams of income and to make it work, but you kind of want that minimum in your mind so you can budget and allocate your time and your finances. But that doesn't have to be the final, date. You can definitely change it as you go into it. And I have had a few clients that have ended it sooner than they thought because an opportunity presented itself for a job while they were on a break and they felt ready and prepared and they just didn't want to say no.
Okay. So Katrina, do you have a tip for the listeners that are potentially going to be brought into the office at some point and given the opportunity to move up in the company and be promoted and move into a brand new role? And it's so exciting. How do we, at that negotiation process, when they show us, our new rate of pay and the benefits, how do we bring up a sabbatical in that meeting with HR, with the leader of the company, whatever? How do we present that? Because it doesn't seem like it's as common a request for people to make this to their employer. Do you have any tips on how we can present this so that our employer will be more open to this idea of a sabbatical?
Yeah. So, I would say number 1, know your employee benefits, right? Read the handbook. Know if sabbaticals are something that many people don't take, but that your company actually offers, and start to think about if you're one of the lucky people, that does have a company that provides some type of leave. It could be just a month. Understanding what the benefit to the company is, right, in your sabbatical. So being able to articulate how they're going to win, or if you have thoughts on how they're going to navigate that time, that 1 month, that 2 months that you're going to, sort of be out, who could cover. But just thinking as much as you can from the company's perspective about how is this going to help me as the company and how are we going to survive sort of like your absence. That's a great point. When you are offered something, you do have some power in that negotiation because they're saying, we really value you, right? We value you and you contribute and we see potential that we want to realize with you in this new role. That said, if your company does not have a policy, which is probably the more likely scenario, I wouldn't call it a sabbatical because it's probably triggering for a company that has this need and they're trying to put you in this place to be like, I'm going to take a sabbatical. But, you could talk about taking, a bit of a leave, like a mini leave to restore, reset, and get prepared for this role. And again, you want to think about how does the company benefit? So when you think about what you need from this time, right? Let's say it's 3 weeks. Let's say you feel like the most you can ask for is 3 weeks, but in these 3 weeks, you would love to go see your family out on the West Coast if you live on the East Coast, and you would love to go hike the redwoods while you're out there. And then you want to come back and you want to just really hit the reset button, telling them about how much energy and how much inspiration you feel like you want to come into this role with, that you have this dream of sort of taking this big hike, that you're going to be capturing your ideas, that you're so excited, that your mind is already tuning into this position, but you just need a little time to hit the reset button so that you can come back and fully recharge, ready to lead, right? Being able to paint a picture to them or for them of what the benefits would be really important. But I wouldn't, in that scenario, if they don't offer sabbatical and you are looking like they have a need to fill right now, I wouldn't call it a sabbatical. I would just call it like, I would like to take a bit of a leave, a very short, abbreviated leave to hit the reset button.
So what is the difference then between a leave/sabbatical and an extended holiday? Because I think there's a difference there.
Yeah, so, when it comes to a leave I feel like is a general catch-all, right? You can take a leave for many reasons. A sabbatical is technically a company benefit where they give you a leave. It's a certain kind of leave, right? They give you a leave to go pursue endeavors, take your time. It's usually awarded, after so many years of service, but it's understood that you're coming back to that same company, that they're holding your role. And then a career break is when you decide to quit your job to create a sabbatical experience, but you're taking time off with no guarantee of what you're coming back to because you've left your company. And so when you think about extended holiday and you think about sabbatical, there's a nuance in how these two things are designed. A holiday is like, I'm going to go relax, right? I'm just going to stop working. I might do some things on my holiday, like catch up on some of my admin stuff, but this is really about just not working. And for me, right, as a sabbatical and career break coach, when people come to me to work on career breaks or sabbaticals, those are intentional. Those are setting an intention for this time off. It could be about growth. It could be about healing. It could be about connection or reconnection. It could be about, self-development, but it's really choosing to use this time as a gift to somehow, create some alchemy within yourself where you emerge from this changed, right? Even if it's simply just healing from burnout, but emerge changed versus an extended holiday, which is like, I just want to have some fun or I just want to not work, which is totally great. We all need that time as well. But I think sabbaticals are more chances for a mini transformation or a change or just allowing parts of yourself that you've been denying to kind of come to the surface and giving them time and space to process and or deal with them.
What's interesting to me is the fact that, like we talked about, that this would be maybe between a current role and then a promotion and then having a sabbatical time. Because anytime that I've ever been promoted, I've moved from one busy job to a much more busier job with more responsibility, a learning curve, and the chance for me to take a break in that first 6, 9, 12 months of a new position is very limited because there's so much new to learn. There's a whole bunch of change happening. And my chance to take a break is delayed because of the newness of the position. So I even if I wanted to, I can't take a break because I've accepted the position. I'm in my new office and here comes a workload that we've just been dying to give you, Dave. Here you go. Here you go. You got lots of work to do. See you in a year. We'll talk about your next break. I love the idea of that little gap where you have time to reset, prepare yourself, and get in the right headspace for your next position, your next challenge. Because there's times I think where there's people promoted into new positions who are just completely overwhelmed and just burn out because they haven't invested in themselves.
Absolutely.
Right?
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Okay, so let's talk directly from your perspective to an HR person. Maybe there's a an owner, a corporate person, the boss is listening to our episode today, I have a background in HR, so I'm curious about this. So I'm kind of setting you up here a little bit. Let's speak to them directly about the benefit to a company's employee base for key people that you want to promote and invest in on the benefits of a sabbatical. And let's speak directly to an HR manager. Let's speak directly to the CEO that's listening to our episode, not the employee that's being promoted. Let's talk to the leadership and let's just tell them from your perspective about why this benefits the potential for your future employee.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously you're, granting or considering granting this benefit to the star employees, right? The ones that are shining, the ones that you see potential, the ones that you want to promote. And so I think, one of the most critical benefits of granting a sabbatical is that you are basically acknowledging that, this is a human, right? Not just a machine. And so you are giving them time. You are signaling to them like, we value you as a person and we would like to give you time to feel prepared. It's like setting your team up to win. And I think a lot of times your stars, your high performers are the people that need it the most because a lot of their self-identity has become wrapped up in the position, right? And they need a chance to just create a little bit of space so that they can heal, that they can feel restored and recharged. I think you get the most creative ideas when you allow people the chance to be bored or to have free space and free time. And so, the level of innovation and creative thinking that you get, exposing people or allowing people to the time to be exposed to new ideas, new situations, new environments is really critical. But also, I think it engages more deeply the people that you most want to continue, that you want to develop, that you want to lead the company. And you basically show them, in your actions that they matter, that you value them, and you reduce their stress. You reduce the chance that they're going to burn out. You reduce the chance that they are going to come into this position and basically run into a brick wall and create more problems down the road that you have to fix. They're going to come in with a lot of ideas, a lot of inspiration, and a lot of energy to move the team and the business forward and to continue growing because they have the capacity to grow because you've given them a chance to rest first.
In a smaller version of what we're talking about, I know one of my past leadership roles, I went to my boss and I had a team that worked for me. And I went and said, what are my options for my team? What can I offer them? And they said, well, there's no more money, but you can give them time. So that's the one thing that I had in my toolbox is I was able to give days off and give time back to my team in a smaller sense than what we're talking about here. But the idea was that even if there is no money, that I can't pour more money into your paycheck, I can give you something back that could be equal to or even of greater value in giving you time. So I'd have people come in my office and say, I would love to take Friday off. I want to take my son or my grandson to a baseball game. I know I don't have any holiday time left. What can we do? And it's like, yeah, go. And just the look on their face, like, really? I'm like, yeah, we'll take care of it. Enjoy your time with your grandson. It's like they come back, Katrina, just like with a renewed sense of I'm in the right place and people value me, right? And that's just a small taste of what we can do. But I love how you are taking a simple thing like that and expanding it to the benefit of an employee so that we do have that connection with family, with ourselves, the chance to travel you talked about. I'm curious. I kind of know the answer to this already, so I'm playing dumb as we go with our theme for the day. But you came back from your sabbatical and then you had to go hand out resumes and go for interviews and track down a new job, right? You had to start all over from scratch because you were selfish and took time off. That's how it turned out, right? For you? No?
Yeah. I mean, I did have to hit the job market, but I'll say one of the reasons that I do what I do today is because that return was incredible. So once I decided I was going to go back to corporate America and I got really clear on that, I got clear on what my non-negotiables were going to be. I updated my resume, and from the day I posted my updated resume until the day I accepted a job, I had received 5 job offers in 5 weeks. And that was the moment where I was like, wow, there's really something to this taking a break thing.
So yeah, that I knew that answer. So if somebody's listening going, Dave, that was a little harsh. That was a little harsh, Dave. And I'm like, no, I know what's coming. 5 job offers. And I think there was like an increase there, maybe too.
Yeah. One of the jobs was like a career change. One of the jobs was a promotion. It was going to pay me about 30% more, and it came with a better title. Another job was a dream job in an industry I'd wanted to be in. They were just all different and all exciting in their own different way.
I'm excited to see this book come to light. What is the date for the book? Do you have an idea?
Yeah. So I will be done writing in the middle of the summer, so at the end of July. And the book is slated to come out late November of 2023 or early December. They're kind of figuring that nuance out, but it will be out right before the end of the year.
This sounds like a perfect Christmas present to give to your boss.
Does it? Doesn't it?
Just slide it on the desk and go, here's a good read for you.
Yep. Or you
Check
could
that
just
out.
verify them and just leave it without saying who it's from. And you could just leave it on their desk, so then they have to wonder who left this for me here and why.
Leave it in the HR department.
Yeah.
One there. So you need to buy 2 books. Everyone, if you're listening to this, go buy 2 copies. One for your boss and one for HR. And just put it out there.
Put it out there.
Good reading over the Christmas break, right?
Absolutely.
So everyone has to buy 2 books minimum. Plus, you're going to need one for yourself. So 3. Everyone needs to buy 3 books,
exactly.
Right? Does that work for you?
This works well for me, Dave. This works out.
Okay, all right. All right. Yeah. So, Katrina, I love this. I've never met it seems weird to say this, a Dummies author before. So, I've seen the books. They're everywhere. And there's a great pedigree there. There's, they're well received. They're so practical, these books. And, they're designed to be something you can use right now. And your message and who you are is going to shine through this book. And I just can't wait to hear the success story when this launches. I don't know if it's possible, but I would love to have you back when the book is ready to go out and it's launched, and we can celebrate together all the hard work that's ahead for you right now. I'm cheering you on here up in Canada. I'm just like, go, Katrina, go. So, any thoughts as we close off, Katrina, to the person that will be buying this book? What is your big message for them? What is your hope as they read through this and keep it with them on the shelf, like my guitar one behind me? What is your big picture for your reader?
Yeah. Oh, well, first of all, thank you so much for all that support, Dave. I love that. And I would absolutely love to come back when the book is ready to see the light of day and, to talk about it. I think for me, I'm previously not been an author, right? I'm a first time author. And I think while I've written shorter things, this book is a massive undertaking. And, I just finished writing my first chapter, which was well received by the team, which was great news, but it was a lot of work. And honestly, it was even more than I anticipated. And when I thought about, do I want to commit to doing this for like 16 more chapters? I had a moment where I was like, do I? Because it's a lot. And it wasn't necessarily this goal I've been trying to manifest or envision for myself for years and years and years. But what has been true for me is that this is my mission, right? Is to help people. It's not just about taking the break. It's about reclaiming your time and realizing that you don't have to subscribe to these ideas that don't fit you. You don't have to buy into the idea that you are only as valuable as what you produce, and that, working and grinding out at a job is just your forever life until you're retired. Like, I want to give people the gift of time back. Like you talked about, that chance to go to a game with your grandson or to do anything that you want to do. It's so invaluable. And I think people don't give themselves permission. So I'm writing this book as a manual, and it's sort of my whole life's work, if I'm being honest. I feel like I'm not holding back anything, even the activities I work on with my clients. Like I'm putting it all in here because I want the person that buys this book to pick it up and to have two things happen. One, for them to feel seen and heard in their desire to break out and create space for a life that is more than just work and doing other things on the side of work. And it's also like a manual. How do I go from thinking about this air quotes wild and crazy idea to making a plan, to getting ready, to navigating the break, to returning from the break into a life that feels good, that feels more aligned, and that feels happy? How do I find a good job or a good career or a good source of income once it's over? All the things. So I want somebody that picks this book up, right? If you're reading this book, I want you to feel inspired. I want you to feel like you can give yourself permission, and I want you to feel empowered with the information to feel like, oh my gosh, I could make a plan for this. This could actually happen for me.
There you go. So if you, again, I'm like, how do I end this? This is so good. It's so amazing. If you're one of those dummies that hasn't figured out yet how sabbaticals can help your company grow and help your employees and revitalize your team, the book is coming. And if you're listening to this in the future, the book is here. And all the information is in the show notes. And Katrina, thank you so much for writing this book. I know it's a work in process right now. Thank you for writing this book. Thank you for thinking of us as employees, as people that need the break, and for keeping us in mind as you write this. And I'm looking forward with great anticipation to get my 3 copies, so that I can share them as well. So thank you for being part of the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Dave. I so enjoyed it.
Okay, well, thank you for being here on Living the Next Chapter. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We enjoyed having you here on the podcast. Our authors are amazing. I hope you appreciate their time, their effort to make this possible. If you know an author, if you want to recommend an author, that's a good idea. Hey, if there's an author that you really would love to hear about or hear from, if you tell me, if you send me a message, you speak pipe on our website, livingthenextchapter.com, send me an email. Go over to livingthenextchapter.com. Send us a message. We will forward your message to that author and say, listen, you are being requested to be on Living the Next Chapter. Our audience can't wait to hear from you. You can help shape the show. Yeah, you. You could do that right now, actually. You got a minute, right? Okay, how about you do that? livingthenextchapter.com. I'll see you over there. Recommend an author. Yeah. See you. Thanks.
Mindshift Power Podcast, the podcast for teenagers and those who work with them. There's a huge problem in America today. There's a very large disconnect between teenagers and the adults who work with them. I'm looking to bridge that gap with real, raw, honest conversation, not held back by the chains of political correctness. You cannot solve a problem you do not understand. Want to understand teenagers today? Listen to this podcast. This podcast is for teens in the U.S. and Canada. To learn more, go to fatimabay.com/podcast or just look for Mindshift Power Podcast on any listening platform. I look forward to you being a faithful listener.